wishes after Charlie Penny Pings. Category yellow, imagine by the wizard, works well.
Here I go, anti-anything.
Yes, it's a million British one these days. So it's some other.
Here I go, anti-anything.
Oh, ho.
It functions everywhere, sometimes without stopping, sometimes discontinuously. It breathes, it heats, it eats, it shits, it fucks. One mistake ever said the it everywhere. It is machines, not at all metaphorically. Machines of machines with their couplings, their connections. An organ machine is connected with a source machine, one emits a flux which the other cuts. The breast is a machine that produces milk, and the mouth, a machine coupled to that one. The mouth of the anorexic hesitates between an eating machine, an anal machine, a talking machine, a breathing machine, deeper machine, asthma, attack. This is why we are all tinkerers, each with their own little machines. An organ machine for an energy machine. There are always flux and cuts. Judge Schreber 5 has divine rays in his ass. Solar anus. And rest assured it works. Judge Schreber feels something, produced of something, and theorized about it. Something is being deduced effects of machines, not metaphors. Of the schizophrenic. It's a better model than the neurotic lying on the couch. A bit of fresh air, relationship with the outside. Take the stroll of Lenz into the outdoors. It is different from moments when Lenz finds himself with his good pastor, who forces him to situate himself socially in relation to God, in relation to Father, in relation to Mother. On the contrary, he is in the mountains under the snow with other gods, or without God at all, without family, without father or mother, with nature. What does my father want? Can he give me better? Impossible! Leave me alone.
Want, don't speak. Hello, everyone here on the YouTubes. I hope you're doing well. Welcome to another lovely Tuesday as we continue the very, 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 very long ongoing reading. Very long ongoing reading of Anti-Oedipus. We are finishing our third in the next 66 years at this rate. But we are bottom of page 354. Over the last couple of weeks, we've been spending time as they've talked through sort of the way that psychoanalysis has found a way to extract the structure of class, the structure of social investment, and turn it into particular symbolic elements, to turn it into representational elements. The way that it sort of, Freud, through his petit bourgeois life, turned the petit bourgeois reality into the tautological system that we all obviously were a part of. Why would you ever doubt otherwise? That's how you make a healthy, good human being who certainly isn't fucked up by cocaine and hating gay people and problems with his own penis. I have no idea why you'd say such a thing. So like, this is what they've been charging forward to. And they're finally getting to the beginning of what I would say is the substantive critique. Just to, zoom back just a little bit. They've been going through this last paragraph. We spent a lot of time last week going through a handful of his cases, Freud's more famous cases, Wolfman, Ratman. We went through Schreber a little bit. There's a handful of others that we talk about, and they're basically breaking them down and saying, Why do we have to understand it this one way? Why is this the only way that we can understand these things? And as they're making this critique, we're going to be making the move a little bit further. And that's going to be the setup. So that's going to be the thing. Any questions since last week? Anyone have a thing that's been bothering them setting up? Anything before I dive in? Because I'm going to start moving over to the reading otherwise. That's fantastic. Let's read. Let's do it. We always fall back into the false alternative where Freud was led by Oedipus and then confirmed in this position by his controversy with Adler and Jung. Either, he says, you will abandon the sexual position of the libido in favor of an individual and social will to power, or in favor of a prehistoric collective unconscious. Or you will recognize Oedipus, making of it the sexual abode of the libido, and you will make daddy mommy into, quote, the purely erotic motive. Oedipus, the touchstone of the pure psychoanalyst, on which to sharpen the sacred blade of a successful castration. Yet what was the other direction glimpsed for a moment by Freud apropos of the familial romance, before the Oedipal trapdoor slammed shut? It is the direction rediscovered, at least hypothetically, by Philippe Girard. There is no family where vacuoles are not arranged, where extrafamilial breaks are not manifest, by means of which the libido is engulfed in order to sexually invest the non-familial, i.e., the other class, as determined under the empirical rubrics of the richest and poorest. Sometimes both at once. Wouldn't the great other, indispensable to the position of desire, be the social other, social difference apprehended and invested as the non-family within the family itself? The other class is by no means grasped by the libido as a magnified or impoverished image of the mother, but as the foreign, the non-mother, the non-father, the non-family, the index of what is non-human in sex, and without which the libido would not assemble its desiring machines. Class struggle goes to the heart of the ordeal of desire. The familial romance is not a derivative of Oedipus. Oedipus is a drift of the familial romance, thereby of the social field. It is not a question of denying the importance of parental coitus, the position of the mother, but when this position makes the mother resemble a floor washer or an animal, what authorizes Freud to say that the animal or the maid stand in for the mother independently of the social or generic differences, instead of concluding that the mother also functions as something other than the mother, gives rise in the child's libido to an entire differentiated social investment at the same time as she opens the way to a relation with the non-human sex? For whether the mother works or not, whether the mother is from richer or poorer background than the father, etc., has to do with breaks and flux that traverse the family, but that overreach it on all sides and are not familial. Let's go book. There isn't really a here's what they're saying here for the most part, but they're kind of diving at. There are so many ways people mistake Anti-Oedipus. They tend to take the title as that they don't believe in familial constraints. They don't believe in the family. They don't believe in Oedipus. They don't believe, they're anti these things. But that's not really what's happening here. Their understanding of the family, their understanding of these things. It's a question of how these things interrelate with desire, the partial machines and partial objects, and how desiring machines operate. This is where the question comes. As they've said throughout this chapter, the question is not whether or not one is subservient to another person or anything like that. That's the classic setup. Instead, we need to be talking about one's class interest, which is pre-conscious, but their investments socially, which is unconscious. These things come together to deign whether someone sort of is handling things in terms of what representation says, and it crushes desiring production, or whether desiring production is free to be emergent and is informed by the symbolic. Because these things do work together. To say that desiring machines and social machines are different, again, goes against everything they've said, as they've outright said multiple times in this chapter. The way these things work together, how they interplay and what they do, it's a very minor switch to hit. It's saying, hey, desire should be emergent. No, desire should be servile. That's it. It's this tiny little thing. And it's a big push as they make their way through it. So let's make our way through this paragraph. There is actually a huge amount said, especially about psychoanalytic orthodoxy, and Jung and Adler, even though it's only like 2 or 3 sentences, it's a lot. It's a lot said about all of this. If you don't know Adler and Jung, they mentioned a couple paragraphs ago, the reason they're bringing them up is because with Adler and Jung, they were starting with the hypersocial as being the place that everything began. In terms of repression or ideation or anything like that, the fount is social. For Jung, it was the collective unconscious. For Adler, it was the goddamn blah, blah, blah. Some social shit. Who cares? Fuck Adler. But Freud wrote against this and wrote against it very well. But for him, he stopped at the personal rather than continuing to the libidinal, which, again, he is the one who kind of coined this term. And by stopping at the individual, he actually almost inverted the entire problem to create an even bigger issue. And that's kind of what this is going to come down to. So we'll make our way through this. Any questions we'll sort of handle as we go. We always fall back into the false alternative, where Freud was led by Oedipus and then confirmed in this position by his controversy with Adler and Jung. Either, he says, you will abandon the sexual position of the libido in favor of an individual and social will to power, or in favor of a prehistoric collective unconscious, or you'll recognize Oedipus, making of it the sexual abode of the libido. You'll make daddy mommy into a purely erotic motive. This is like, this is basically the problematic thing of all of the orthodoxy of psychoanalysis. It's almost a trilemma, not really a dilemma, as they're talking about. Sorry, 1 second. Heather's dropping a note. Good. Kids are out. There's this really cute little place they go called City Play, where it's like a indoor play area but it's a mini city. Kids love it. They get to do jobs and stuff and cook food, but it's all toys. It's cute stuff. My kids are properly Oedipalized, thank you. But the trilemma we're talking about here is Freud, who discovered Oedipus through his self-analysis. Again, a lot of this comes through the notebook of his own dreams that he sort of spoke about. But it's basically defending that against Adler's individual psychology, which is this will to power sort of on from Nietzsche-ish kind of thing, and Jung's collective unconscious. Jung, I don't agree with Jung, I'll say, but it's this idea that there is a collective unconscious of archetypes, and from that we pull all of the things as we understand it. But the defensive posture that is there, this is the false alternative. Freud was led to Oedipus and then was in controversy and had to basically defend his position. They've talked about this the last 3 paragraphs too. If you remember, the language is over and over and over, because this is a thing Lacan talks about, but Guattari really, really goes wild with. This defensive position basically forced this extreme reduction, that it didn't give Freud the room to continue or sort of continue to push in different ways. It's basically saying you either have the ability, you either decide to abandon libidinal sexuality for this archetypical structure, or you make Oedipus the sexual framework of all of it, which turns parents into erotic motives. That's it. So that's the thing that sort of is opening here, and which again is framing the rest of the paragraph. Oedipus, the touchstone of the pure psychoanalyst on which to sharpen the sacred blade of successful castration. In traditional sort of psychoanalytic orthodoxy, the core thing that you're trying to get at is proper castration, but there's also all these other things, castration anxiety, that exist, which is the central way that we sort of have a conversation around how the purity is maintained through this, that the castration's necessary. The analyst is sharpening their tools on the Oedipal stone, is the phrasing that they're using here. The sacred blade of a successful castration. They're speaking of the way that you'd talk of like a Aztec priest on top of a mountain sharpening his blade on a rock. The sharpening the sacred blade of successful castration. They're using that imagery because that's what's happening here. Again, this is the way the tool, it's the stone is sharpening, giving them more and more ability to create the castrated subject. That's a huge deal to them as they sort of make their way through. It's a big fucking deal. Making sense so far? It seems like on an individual level is what authorizes a person to say, oh, go for it, JK.
Yeah, what's the difference between Adler's will to power and, which comes from Nietzsche, right? And Deleuze's position, he also draws from Nietzsche, but not from the will to power.
If you just mute, sorry. So yes, he also draws from Nietzsche. He plays in a different place with it. It is a social will to power for Adler. Adler's very much bringing the social in as, again, the fount of these things, that there is a social will to power, which again, not in my reading of Nietzsche, but again, not in Deleuze's, but Adler really runs with this, that there is a social will. I'd have to go into it. We went into it last time around. I'd have to go find the text. I'm not super versed in Adler, because again, I don't find it compelling. I'm also equally unversed in Jung, which I also find equally uncompelling. But it's very much starting there. They talked about this a couple of paragraphs ago again. And that's kind of the big thing. I can dig into it if you want, if you'll have to give me a second though.
So Deleuze has this kind of a desire in production. Is that also from Nietzsche, or is that just kind of his interpretation of Nietzsche's will to power?
So desiring production, desire is, as Deleuze is talking about it, his version of Nietzsche's will to power. I believe that they're very aligned. Deleuze talks about it that way. The machinic unconscious and desiring production comes from his time with Guattari. Guattari was kind of toying with this before, and all of that is really in service of, I would argue, Bruyère and Simondon and a handful of other sort of thinkers who came before, Klosowski as well, who really sort of tarried with the machinic side of things. So it's a collective effort that Deleuze is sort of extracting from as a thing. If that makes sense. Like, again, it's kind of a tougher thing to go into quickly, but desire and will to power are similar. They have different effects. If we want to have the conversation around the will to power and how it's basically, in my opinion, not really able to be extracted from the way that the turn return the vicious circle, in Klosowski's terms, operates, and you start having a conversation about the machinic size of that, yes, Nietzsche doesn't explicitly do this, and so it has to be kind of pulled out of it for him.
So Deleuze also draws from Hume, right? And
oh yeah,
right. His idea of Hume's idea of sensation as the kind of foundation for our experience, and but Deleuze also wrote a treatise or a book on Kant, and Kant's interpretation of Hume is one of phenomenological. So the sensations are like the thing in itself that can't be known. And so that's what phenomenology does, and it kind of like dismisses or buries this idea of human sensation in that thing in itself. So Deleuze is taking from Hume this minimum of a sensational experience, and he runs with that, right?
I think that's fair. I think Ben's in here. Ben. You did a reading recently of Hume or Deleuze's. See there you go. Look, it's fair. It's not exactly spot on, but I think it's fair. I think it's worth reading.
Here I go anti-anything.
Kant is the goat tipped
One sec.
$4.20. How much more to break the 1,000 mark?
For the 1,000 mark. I have no idea. But thank you. Kant is the goat sent us a nice super chat. So Kant is the goat. The fucking theory people online or something else. So Ben writes in the Discord chat, Deleuze isn't taking sensational experience from Hume. I think I would be able to make an argument that he is playing with that and taking, again, not so much the phenomenological version of that, but he's taking that version as the start. He very explicitly excoriates empiricists that start with experience. But the sensations of it, oh God damn it, Ben. This is why this is, again, I think it's close enough. Can I say it's close enough for now? I'm going to say it's close enough for now. Because I don't want a rabbit hole. I will rabbit hole on that. Because you're right. But I think that, again, it's splitting hairs if we want to talk about it. Because Ben's point, and Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, but Hume is very much starting with experience as the foundation. But for Deleuze, experience is produced as per these sensations. But he isn't tossing out the idea of the sensational experience as being the start. Instead, we're talking about basically the way that desiring production operates is the partial object's production is sensational affect. That sensational affect is then born into something larger that becomes experience. So it's...
Hegel is the goat tipped $4.20. Lol, it's not an imposter, it's a D&G lover, but I still appreciate Kant and Hegel. Smiley face emoji.
I don't even know who's writing this because it's not in our super chats or in our YouTube, but some Kant is a goat just gave another thank you very much. I don't know how this is working. Tips are funny. We appreciate Kant and Hegel too, as things to build off of. But Ben, does that make sense as I'm saying it? Where he's doing something different, but he's very much taking the experiential sensation from Hume and turning it into something more. But it's not starting with the experience like Hume does. But again, it's imprecise, but fine. Yeah, I mean, is it precise enough for a fucking 5-minute Discord discussion? I have lower standards for a live Discord discussion, I suppose. You stew in that. You stew in that, Baker boy. You stew in that, Baker boy. I forgot where we were. JK, did that even come close to talking about what you were asking?
Yeah, I guess it's okay because, I understand that Deleuze is inverting, Kant's phenomenology. Because Kant is taking phenomenology as what is the condition for experience, and not the sensations.
It's a FNAN.
And but Deleuze is inverting that and going back to Hume, I think. Is that correct, Ben?
You just asked me something, but I was totally zoned the fuck out. I'm sorry.
That was a long, very good question. God damn it, Ben. And I can't rephrase it because it was just complex enough. Can you try one more time, JK?
I'll watch the stream and I'll answer it in chat later.
All right, that will work. That will work. So how I would kind of phrase it is with Hume really does, empiricism and subjectivity, which I recommend very, very, very much. It's not really about taking sensational experience as the starting point of things. Instead, for Hume, he's taking the idea that the subject for Hume is not a given. It's instead constituted through repeated things, habits, beliefs, other stuff. He also takes that experience is a synthetic thing. It's not an analytic thing. That's a big deal Hume goes into as far as Deleuze is concerned. And The whole play is to make this move a transcendent and materialist analysis. These things come together. These things work together. And so instead of this dogmatic empirical view, which is generally, I think, what is associated with Hume, but the transcendental empiricism he ends up pulling, or critiquing, he ends up pulling, opposes this idea that sensations start it. Instead, it's productive processes that generate experiences, and the subject is the effect of this desiring production.
That makes sense. So he's Deleuze is kind of between Hume and Kant, right? He doesn't go all the way with Kant.
I mean, he kind of sidesteps both of them. That's one of the things that makes Deleuze so interesting, especially his reading of Kant, who he very much, I think he takes an extraordinary amount from, and he's very, very weirdly positive on Kant, despite basically doing, I think, the most violence to Kant's ideas that of any of the thinkers that he sort of plays with. But saying he's between them, I would be very much hesitant to say. I would say he utilizes things for both of them, and he even plays them off of each other or the ideas he's playing with in order to continue to build, because he sees them as more or less the resources to extract from, I would say.
Yeah, okay, thanks for the discussion.
Yeah, it's a fun one. It's my brain's been in psychoanalysis land when we do these readings. I wish I was in a better place to be able to respond better. Because it's really an interesting and extremely important distinction that's really overlooked. And it's, again, empiricism and subjectivity is one of those things that if anyone's having trouble with Deleuze, it's worth just picking up. It is not a long book. It isn't an easy book. I'm not going to say that, but as far as like Deleuze books go, it's like a notch slightly more difficult than like Nietzsche and philosophy, which I consider to be a pretty base level foundational reading book. And again,
the difficult thing about empiricism and subjectivity isn't the language or the concepts. It's the density and how Deleuze gives you literally no time to digest something before moving on to the next thing.
Well, and how he's using, and again, when we're talking about like the Hume Kant connection for him is basically he's taking Kant's transcendental method and he's applying it to things with Hume's empirical setup, and then adding a materialist sort of analysis through Marx. Like, again, Deleuze is like a really wild philosopher at the time, especially. He's doing a huge amount of work between this, but again, he doesn't have the transcendent categories. For example, for Kant, he doesn't want to play with the ideal conditions of things, but instead the material processes of things. And then on Hume's side, he's like, it's not just that we have psychological associations. No. We have collective assemblages or arrangements. He's playing with both and kind of in a pretty cool way. It's pretty cool. It's good stuff. But I do want to continue reading this paragraph. Goddamn. It's so easy to go down a direction because it's so fun. And there's so much said in some of these sentences that really do push in a lot of different ways. And again, the Adler connection, which is probably more like direct related to this, but it's for Adler, because I popped up a few of the papers I have just to remind myself of words, because there's a lot. Adler's thing was social interest. The will to power for Adler really had to do with almost, I would say, the most common way people misunderstand will to power is they think of it as a will to power over others or within others, or social improvement through rebellion. And they think of it as social first. Very much for Adler, it's social first. There's still an individual there, and the individual exists, but we're formed as Adnan said, it's very much focused on, I think it was Adnan. Afnan said that. It's like big other in some sense, like the Lacanian big other. It's a negative will to power almost, because again, it's about the lack or the way the relationship is socially rather than emergent from within, which is how Deleuze reads will to power. And me too. Yeah, that's how I'd phrase it. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I think that works for me. I'm going to handle that, and I'm going to say we're going to keep moving unless someone has a thing they want to also add to this. Because we have the trapdoor line coming up, which is a great start for the rest of it, and I kind of don't want to break through because the point of this paragraph, well, there is a lot said, and we could rabbit hole easily. The thing to focus on here as we're going through is how the family relates to the individual, how we relate the family back to the individual, how the family becomes a thing, and how we sort of decide that the family is a thing, or how it's involved with the larger arrangement of social forces and the creation of forces and the creation of subjectivity. That's the thrust here for all of this. And so when they say, and I think we were at, correct me if I'm wrong, yet what was in the other direction glimpsed for a moment by Freud, apropos of the familial romance before the Oedipal trapdoor slams shuts. The Oedipal trapdoor is the foreclosure of potential, the foreclosure of other options. Oedipus becoming dominant as a thing, it blocks off social understanding in general, as they're going to talk about, because they say it is the direction rediscovered, hypothetically, by Philippe Girard, who we talked about a few paragraphs ago. There's no family where vacuoles are not arranged, where extrafamilial breaks are not manifest, by means of which the libido is engulfed in order to sexually invest the non-familial, the other class, as determined under the empirical rubrics of the richest and the poorest, sometimes both at once. There's a really interesting phrasing here that they're talking about, because Philippe Girard, who not a lot of people know, and here in the West, I think he's still relatively not even talked about. The point for him and what he was doing was trying to revive Freud, but doing so by like an anti-psychiatry thing. It's really interesting writing. He's a very minor figure in psychoanalysis, but they really pulled him out, and we have a bunch of his PDFs on the QC if you want to join, discord.gg/DGQC. So when we're talking about, like, for Girard, when we're talking about what the family is, the vacuoles, which are empty space, vacuoles, it's a science term, but it means basically empty space, but it's structured empty space. It's structured as being empty. When you talk about, say, the human body or cells within it, we're not like made of stuff everywhere. That would be really weird. At some point, there are empty places, and these empty spaces are vacuoles. It's intentionally built to be that way. It's intentional negative space almost, because it's structured around the thing. And with this, we have, as he's talking about it, it's kind of these gaps and openings that the family always has. And through this, external forces are penetrating. A mother, father aren't just mom and dad. They are almost a gigantic sluice gate of all of social reality and all of the worlds that they deal with. Children see their parents. They see them deal with things. They see them deal with the real world. And through them, but around them, they directly deal with these structures. Dad angry about bills doesn't happen one time. Dad angry or talking about bills or what bills are, that doesn't matter, but the structure of it does. This continuous sort of enacting of that social system. There are around it open spaces that social forces are able to penetrate. And so as such, the way that they're talking about it here, the libido doesn't really only or basically circulate within the family triangle, but really it's actually through these openings, and it invests in social class differences. They make a few sort of line jokes in here, but it's basically the other class determined under the empirical rubrics of richest and poorest, sometimes both at once. The investment in where you're supposed to be, how these things interact, what they are. This is happening. It's happening through and around the parents. Libido is being invested socially. And class antagonism, not familial structure, organizes that investment. It's they sexually invest in the non-familial, the other class determined under the rubric of richest and poorest. They bring this up. The last section we talked about, last paragraph, Ratman, Wolfman, whole bunch of Freud stuff. And it's not an abnormal, do you want to go through all of the stories, fiction, movies of whatever, of finding someone from the other side of the tracks, the prince who finds the gorgeous peasant girl, or the rich princess who finds the peasant boy. Titanic as a movie is this. It's the Zizek's my favorite fucking line. Titanic's a movie about how the rich have to feed off the energy of the poor in order to be fulfilled in their lives. But it's like this romantic version of this, that you're out. Love transcends class boundaries. You may talk about it, but this is the thing that's happening. They're investing in social class differences immediately. The richest and poorest is the class antagonism. It's not so much that he witnessed his mother, or he witnessed his mother having sex, and so therefore when he saw this woman on all fours who was cleaning, he associated it with his mother. Oh God, that's why jump back to that. There are other things happening, other investments, other stuff going on, other things that are making this what it is. And that's the phrasing that they've got is really specific on this. And I think really vocal when they say extrafamilial breaks are not manifest, by means of which the libido is engulfed in order to sexually invest the non-familial. There's this engulfing, wrapping, plunging into. This is not a passive covering or anything. It's engulfed as a thing. And it's, again, based in this classificatory framework and setup of the imperial rubric, richest and poorest, sometimes both at once, whatever it may be, but the libido is investing. And they continue, wouldn't the great other, indispensable to the position of desire, be the social other, social difference, apprehended, invested as the non-family within the family itself? So this is Guattari, and this is going to get so fucking, I'm sorry, in advanced. This is a challenge to Lacanian psychoanalysis, and I'm not going to explain a lot of Lacanian psychoanalysis because I'm not the guy, and I wouldn't presume to be able to go super deep. So anything I say, take a grain of salt. I'm trying to express it more in terms of this book than in terms of Lacan, so I'm probably not doing justice to Lacan. Lacan's big other refers to this idea of the larger symbolic order, language, law, the structures of culture, and all of these things that create the system from which we find gaze, from which we find ourselves, from which we kind of find ourselves socially determined. Guattari here, with Deleuze and Guattari, are basically proposing that the great other is actually simply social class difference. The way they phrase this by saying the non-family within the family itself, the non-family within the family itself is about how social class antagonisms traverse and constitute. And they've said these phrases before, family relations. It's not external to them. They go right through it. The non-family within the family, because there isn't just the family. There isn't just dad. There isn't just mom, dad, everyone. These people change. They have different coordinates all the fucking time. By calling them a single thing, by saying they're a single thing, you're not removing that. You're just calling them a single thing and then playing the trick of crushing desiring machines to not be able to connect with them in the multitude of ways they can connect. A mom, sure, she can be a mom. Great. Mom breastfeeds, feeds the child. I don't know, stuff like that. Great. But dad can mom. I can feed the child with a bottle. What does mom do? What is mom's thing? What is that coordinate? Well, she might go to work. She might also not be doing X, Y, and Z. She might be writing one day. Is writing a mom thing? Is watching TV a mom thing? Or Like, these aren't mom things, but we call them mom. We say mom. Playing mom. And so when we do that, the symbol, the representation of the thing takes form, and desire is crushed by this. Secret agent playing the trick of, are people being tricked? No, I don't mean trick in the sense of like being fooled, but like, I mean it more in the sense of like a sleight of hand. It's not really a trick though. Not in the same way. I shouldn't use that phrase. It's not ideological. It's imminent, and it more or less tricking desire. And this is one of the reasons they talk about the paranoiac machine, for example. Desire wants to connect. It wants to continually connect with the things that has satisfied desire before. And so it sees these metals, the desire machines attached to the body without organs. They want it, but the body without organs repels them because you can't have that repetition over and over and over again. And this is the thing desire wants. Desire wants the thing that satisfied it, but it can't do it as a thing. So it sucks. It's driving it nuts, but it creates this neuroses, creates these problems, creates these other things.
Hello, Brooks.
Yes.
So like it's kind of it's basically the beginning of the book, right? Like it's desire doesn't care about like anyone or doesn't care, but like could you specify the paranoid machine, right? It connect to things. It's kind of want to connect like in things. Like for example, like I called the TikTok, it's not funny, but I called it the machine of the production of the sense of logic.
Okay.
Right. So
there's going to be, there are layers here because again, what we're talking about when we're talking about machine is not going to be as clean as where we talk, the calculator is a calculation machine. It's the interaction of various things, but also when we're talking about it, again, it's going to depend on the regime we're talking about. So at the micrological level, the unconscious, the micrological unconscious, that thing, machinic unconscious, the paranoiac machine is something that emerges from the very back and forth that exists between desire machines and the BWO. The way they phrase it is that the meaning of the paranoiac machine is the desire machine's attempt to break into the BWO repelling them because it experiences them as a persecution apparatus. And this back and forth, this mechanism creates a paranoiac, but again, at a very different level. We're not talking about that at the social machine level. Social machine, the paranoiac, the person that is that has excessive paranoia, the paranoiac as a person, operates a handful of different ways and in different positions. And so that's its own discussion. It's going to determine, what socius are we talking about? Are you talking about the capitalist machine? Because the capitalist machine, the paranoiac, is all about decoding flux on the body of capital money. That's what the paranoiac does. But the despot operates very, very differently in this position. So it's more complex, but it has to do with the desire machines being repelled by the BWO and that return consistently.
Last question. I know that I am kind of like being a pain in the ass a little bit, but like,
you're fine, buddy.
Which the best book, like explaining specifically that, like from your own perspective, like
aside from Anti-Oedipus, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
So the best guide to Anti-Oedipus is Introduction to Schizoanalysis by Eugene Holland. The best follow-on secondary text, I believe, is within Chaosmosis. Guattari and Deleuze are both in it, and they have a bunch of interviews. It's called The Balance Sheet for Desiring Machines, and it's a very, very nice discussion and explanation on most of this. And it's a little bit more casual. Some of it's not. Some of it's a lot more jargon-filled, I think is the term that people use. But those are two very good texts if you want to get a deeper grasp on that shit.
Chaosmosis and...
Chaosmosis and Eugene Holland, anything Eugene Holland, but he has one book that's a guide to Anti-Oedipus that is fantastic.
Thanks.
All right. So then to continue. I don't see. All right. Fooled carries the same affect as trick. But it's not misrecognition. The trick of the trick, the function, and I mean it mechanically. Like if I were to say, hey, back when I used to golf a lot, you get really good at being able to like bounce the golf ball on the club. You could do this a while. There's a trick to it. I don't mean that's the phrasing I mean by trick. English is a fucking crazy language because that is 100% a legitimate use of the term, but that is not the right way to phrase it. I should be more careful about that one. But that's more what I mean. It's like the trick to it, the way this functions and gets around something. If that makes sense, Secret Asian Dan. Sorry, everyone. Getting asked. Good question on YouTube. I think it's worthwhile because that's very specific phrasing, and I need to be careful about that. Point made. But to continue, because we're going to be finally finishing this page off. The other class is by no means grasped by the libido as a magnified or impoverished image of the mother, but as the foreign, the non-mother, the non-family, the non-father, the index of what is non-human in sex, and without which the libido would not assemble its desiring machines. This is basically stating pure opposition to the traditional way that class has been talked about in psychoanalytic thought. Class in psychoanalytic thought is very much talked about in terms of mom, daddy, me, or family relations, upper class, lower class. And it's also treated like this, I think, socially. People have these I don't know, the way they talk about these elements. And the family image, the representation of mom and dad being sort of there. But instead, what they're talking about, and again, coming back to, as they've been really pushing, class is just the alternate thing, the foreign thing, the thing that cannot be domesticated within simple categories of the family. The non-father, the non-mother, the non-family, the index of what is non-human in sex. Because again, for them, everything's about sex, but sex isn't fucking. So enjoy that whole thing. Because it's about how sexuality is connecting to forces that go beyond the human. Sexuality is the connections of things beyond you as a person, the human of you. Human sex is penis and vagina, or penis and some other thing, or vagina doing some other stuff. Good for you. We're not talking about that. We're talking the next step, which is beyond the human. What are the connections and forces that exist within this family unit beyond the human? And the libido as the fount of desire or impulses like this, assembles productive connections. And as it's doing it, it's representing nothing. Actually, it's not representing family relations here. It's just building productive connections. Just building productive connections. And that's the next line. Class struggle goes to the heart of the ordeal of desire. It's basically a perfect aphorism because it's about desire itself, how class struggle is central to desire. It's not peripheral. It's not some odd psychoanalytic sidestep or produced by the relation one has with their parents. Desire is politicized by being. Desire is political. Desire is socially invested. Desire is always there. And the phrase they use, the ordeal of desire, is awesome because it's almost like desire is itself the ordeal. The fundamental political testing, the trial of politics. It's not psychological. It's not familial. It is political. And this is the thrust of the book, to be frank. I say that a lot these days. I mean, this last section is pretty much trying to finish that off. So they say, the familial romance is not a derivative of Oedipus. Oedipus is a drift of the familial romance, thereby of the social field. Drift is if you weren't here last week, I made a fucking stink of this. Drift is a weird term for this, a weird translation. Dérivé is and again, I don't speak French, but it is the original French. And so it's more derivation, a deviation, drifting away in that sense. It is a drift of, which is a more poetic thing I think we should be talking about, because derivation is the point for what they're talking about here. The Oedipus is a derivation. It's derived of the familial romance, thereby of the social field. It's not really drift. It's kind of weird, but that's the thing they're driving at. It's a narrowing. It's a derivation of the category, but it is part of that broader social sort of setup. It's derivative of X. Yeah, it's given that Deleuze uses so much math language, it's always frustrating how much they take so much out. They remove so much of the math language that if you don't read it in French, you don't realize that Deleuze is like, I don't know. Like, it's almost like he is sad he didn't go into mathematics. I don't like.
He's kind of like Marx.
He is.
Doing the volume 1 equations.
It is very much that, yeah.
2.
Yeah, it's very much like that. And he goes hard with the math terminology, and this is one of those times again where they keep taking this shit out. It's so frustrating. But this last bit, and this is all one sentence. There's no way to read it and break it up without doing that. What is Deleuze's conception of fascism? We went over that. And I can't restate it now. I can't. I'd love to, but I can't right now. Drift is in Lacan way of understanding dérivé, which is different from DNG's right to call it. God damn it. Okay, so that's I haven't gone back and tried to read Lacan in French because I think it might actually send me to the madhouse. I'll grab a horse someday and start crying and then disappear. Because it's already enough in English, but God damn it. Okay. So the last thing, it is not a question of denying the importance of parental coitus, the position of the mother. But when this position makes the mother resemble a floor washer or an animal, what authorizes Freud to say that the animal or the maid stand for the mother, independently of the social or generic differences, instead of concluding that the mother also functions as something other than the mother, gives rise in the child's libido to an entire differentiated social investment, at the same time as she opens the way to a relation with the non-human sex. For whether the mother works or not, whether the mother is richer or poorer background than the father, has to do with breaks in flux that traverse the family, but that overreach it on all sides and are not familial. This is basically dismantling Freud. This is basically saying, hey, Freud, you fucked up the Wolfman. That's basically the short version.
It's a radical claim.
It's a lot.
I read Lacan seminar 1, and I'm kind of going to seminar 2.
Oh, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that.
Yeah. I'm doing that for the sake of understanding, because I believe in a Spinozian kind of way of what is good is useful for me. But anyway, psychoanalysis always premised on the separation between the kind of the animal or the non-human copulation and the kind of human, right? It has this premise, right? So I don't know if I'm misunderstanding that, but the non-human, non-familiar, right? Which could be anything, right? Anything, or anything.
It's not that it can be anything. It's that it is multiple. That's the big
Yeah.
deal. It is multiple because, so with the Wolfman analysis, we went through it a decent amount last week. We could have done more, but the very short version is that Freud basically saw social class differences of the servant, the animal, again, wolf on all fours, doggy, think of doggy style sex. That's like, this is what that shit's talking about. But for him, he reduced these things to the substitution of family elements. And for D&G, as they're saying, the mother appears as floor washer or animal. This is actually revealing more her social class position rather than a symbolic substitution. They really fucking hate metaphor and analogy and that shit because it's dumb for a lot of reasons. But this is one of the places where they're really explicit. The symbolic substitution reduces mom to reduces everything to mom or mom to a few things, but the mother is multiple. Mother, worker, class member, cleaner, cooker, in the case of the Wolfman. Mothers love their children. They're a warm place to be held. That all of these things are actually opening the child to non-human sex, which is sexuality beyond the general human category of family. That's the non-human sex. And that last bit, where they say the mother works on has to do with breaks in flux that traverse the family. The mother isn't like innately in the Wolfman. She isn't like, hey, she's lower class because she just is, because that's how mom is. No. Whether or not these things are the case, what your family's configuration is, what the mother is also, because she came from a poor background. She worked a lot. She used to clean and do a lot of things. That's not like the family's doing. This is, I think, one of the reasons it's such a damning critique of the idea of general psychoanalytic thought, which is that the family, everything can be reduced to the family. But wait, the family didn't make mom in a lower class. The social system that everyone lives in did. It didn't make dad the rich guy or the poor guy or have to work overtime. That these things are the breaks and flux that traverse the family and overreach it on all sides and are not familial. The familial boundary is completely shattered here. And it's shattered in the Wolfman case, and you don't actually have to do a lot of thinking about it to get to that point. Is kind of their point. That the reduction is basically more work than just going, hey, yeah, actually, mom is a lot of things, has been a lot of things. People are a lot of things. And we don't have to reduce everything to mom. We also don't have to reduce mom to any other thing.
Do you know that the Wolfman case is Melanie Klein, stayed with the wolf, I think, with the patient, right?
I think so. I think so. It's been a long time since I've read. I know Klein's involved. I can't remember if she stayed with him or.
Yeah, and she kind of like, I don't know, the mother figure. I don't know. The mother figure. I read it in Seminar 1 in a Freud paper on technique where Lacan talked about Melanie Klein and how kind of like the process by which he teach him, right? Because he was kind of like, I don't know, I don't remember, but like he was kind of like Lacan describing it as he kind of lacking the symbolic and these kind of things. But I don't know, but that's radical. I mean that's kind of radical. Like in case of the Wolfman, that's like shattering, which means that Melanie Klein in itself, like it's non-familiar, which means that, anyone, I guess it's kind of a radical claim. I guess I see it as a radical claim.
Yeah. That's what, yeah. I don't have much to add there. Is everyone getting kind of the idea here? Because they're taking the idea of what Freud is doing, how he's doing, what Freud set up and his psychoanalytic methodology. And as Deleuze would probably say, they're just doing Freud more Freud than Freud did, taking Freud a little bit further. The way that Freud was heading before he got in this defensive odd posture with Adler and Jung and had to defend things. He was heading towards this sort of pre-personal or this unconscious setup. And so for him, they're saying, well, wait, the way you can be doing this, how you can be setting it up is actually completely different. And they're outlining that for the Wolfman case specifically. But they're making this commentary across all of it. Everyone good? Everyone following so far? Anything shocking, terrifying, awful? Anything you're lost on? Now would be the time, if anyone has it. All right. Easy enough. Easy enough. I'm not sure I followed that. Fair enough, Cosmo. Let me try to say it a different way. When you deal with psychoanalysis is very focused on making sure that as you grew up, your relationship with your parents was creating a proper setup for you. You're born in this sort of libidinal state and have to have your superego formed, and your ego comes out the other side. This is the very short shit version. I'm not interested in critique of it. I'm just trying to talk about it. This setup necessitates parents and good relationships with both of them that put you in a better place. That way, when you get to society or anything else, you've properly learned to take your libidinal energy and sublimate it, to change it into productive capacities. And that, because sex is not productive, sex is grunting and coming and being done. And that's not great. If all you do is, rut like a dog, you won't produce anything. So psychoanalysis needs you to be properly set up. So as such, it's about everything sort of coming back to, hey, your relationship with your mom was tough. She wouldn't touch you. She wouldn't hug you when you were a child. Your father yelled at you and was an angry drunk. These relationships are actually replicating themselves everywhere in your lives. Have you not noticed that you don't handle authority well? Have you not noticed that your relationship with women is bad? That's because all of those women ultimately are like your mother or your father. And they're saying, whoa, hold up. All those women are like mother, but not like mom. They're like the person, because mom doesn't mean really anything. It's denoting this human. But that human's complicated, and there was a lot of things with that human that aren't mom. Now, you may remember your mom baking. That's great. A lot of people don't. A lot of people didn't have moms that baked. I did. But that thing that I associate with mom or being mother or whatever, other people don't. Why would I? Why are we collapsing these things? In fact, what about all the stuff that isn't even part of momming or that no one has? Is it momming to drink soda or to only eat 2 Mike and Ikes a week because sugar is too much for you? Is that a mom thing, or is that a person? This is the challenge they're saying. So the reality is that there is a multiple in everybody. The social world is actually bleeding around on all sides. Parents aren't the protective, vanguards of the world for their children. They are effectively as I said, the sluice gate, because I want you to think of it like a butcher, but it is this huge space where lots of things come through. Does that make sense, Cosmo? This is the whole family is transected by various social machines. Yes, how parents and children are plunged in the social field together. Together is tough, because again, that presumes that there is a single point. Everything is multiple. So don't think, my family went through all these things together. Yeah, sure. But different things, different times, different ways, and different connections, and lots of different sort of setups. Mom being stressed about funds at the end of the month for rent is different than dad being stressed. Mom may not work. Let's say mom does work and dad doesn't. So then where are the stresses showing up? They don't surface the same. We flatten all of this to saying, yes, my whole family was sad at the end of the month, whether or not we could make rent. But the experience of it is a multitude. The multitude of experience is what becomes generative of actually more things. But when we flatten, when we reduce, when we play with things that way, it changes our relationship with those things. They're both being constructed by the sort of, well, they're not being constructed by the socius. This is the part that's fun. They're being constructed by desire. The socius is just at large social machines, more or less. And again, it's all desire, imminently, at once. So there's not like oh, that's dead desire, and that's Steve's desire, and that's desire of the third order. It's one of the reasons I tend to prefer, Klosowski talks about it in terms of impulses. Desire is really a fraught term for a lot of reasons in English, but impulses, the impulses and forces, as Nietzsche would even say, these are the forces that make us up, the complexity of that we crush into, I'm Brooks, and whatever Brooks means or whatever anyone else means, that's set up. Right. Social machines are another regime of desiring machines. They are just desiring machines under determinate conditions. Yes. And Guattari, I see your questions. We're doing an Anti-Oedipus reading right now. Let's try to keep it on point, buddy. But to continue, anyone else here in Discord have a thing? Oh. Gail, you're here. Hello. Welcome. So are subjects built directly by design? Dude, stick around. We'll have a discussion about that sometime. That is not what's in this paragraph or the next one. I'm going to try to not to get super sidelined. But where are we in the text? We are page right now, 355, middle bottom of the English. We are nearing somewhat the end. We've got a bit to go, but we're mostly close to done. It's like 15 pages. So we'll see. All right. From the start. I'll get reading. We'll make our way through and then we'll see. From the start, we wonder if the libido knows father-mother, or rather if it makes the parents function as something entirely different, as agents of production in relation to other agents in socio-desiring production. From the point of view of libidinal investment, parents not only open to the other, they are themselves countersected and divided by the other, who defamilializes them according to the laws of social production and desiring production. The mother herself functions as a rich woman or poor woman, maid or princess, pretty girl or old lady. I love how those are the opposites. Animal or blessed virgin, and all at once. Everything passes into the machine that causes the properly familial determinations to disintegrate. What the orphan libido invests is a field of social desire, a field of production and anti-production with its breaks and flux, where the parents are apprehended in non-parental functions and roles, confronting other roles and other functions. Does this amount to saying the parents have no unconscious role as such? Of course they have an unconscious role, but in two quite specific ways that deprive them even more of their supposed autonomy. In accordance with the distinction made by embryologists with regard to the egg between the stimulus and the organizer, parents are stimuli having an indifferent value that trigger the allocations of gradients or zones of intensity on the body without organs. Look up epigenetics. It is in relation to the parents that in each case, wealth or poverty will be situated, the relative richest or poorest, as empirical forms of social difference, so that within this difference, the parents again appear allocated to such and such a zone, but under a different rubric from that of parents. And the organizer is a social field of desire, which alone designates the zones of intensity, with all the beings that populate these zones and determine their libidinal investment. Secondly, the parents as parents are terms of application. that express the reduction of the social field invested by the libido to a finite aggregate of destination, where the destination finds nothing but impasses and blockages, consonant with the mechanisms of psychic and social repression active in this field. Oedipus, such is Oedipus. In each of these senses, the third thesis of schizoanalysis posits the primacy of the libidinal investments of the social field over the familial investment, both in point of fact and by statute. An indifferent stimulus at the beginning, an extrinsic result at the point of arrival. The relation to the non-familial is always primary, in the form of sexuality of the field in social production and the non-human sex in desiring production, gigantism and dwarfism. Whew.
Brooks, what's the mean both in the fact of the statue, indifferent stimulus, at the beginning of an extrinsic result at the point of arrival? What's the meaning of that? That's kind of ambiguous. Or I don't know.
Well, I mean, so I don't see it as ambiguous. There's a couple steps that we have to go through kind of to get to that, but the phrasing specifically about the extrinsic result is empirically, social investments come first, you could say. Theoretically, this is how desire works. Temporally, family is indifferent stimulus at the beginning and extrinsic result at the point of arrival. The extrinsic result at the point of arrival is the presumed connection, and again, they say it better. The destination finds nothing but impasses and blockages, consonant with the mechanisms of psychic and social repression active in this field. So the parents, as the final destination, right, they get there, this extrinsic result is actually part of the repressive process of all of these things. This is the third thesis. We're going to have to go back through the paragraph. I mean, there's no way to do this and skip straight to that because there's a lot said. There's a lot said. In order to get there, we'll get there. So the only way I can think of doing this is from the start, because this is one of those things that's like, they're saying this very complexly and then summarizing. And so the summary requires the more complex breakdown, especially when it comes to the extrinsic result, because that's kind of the point of how representation functions and one of their core critiques. So from the start, we wonder if libido knows father, mother, or rather if it makes the parents function. If it makes the parents function as something entirely different as agents of production in relation to other agents in socio-desiring production. I mean, they answer it pretty much immediately, but they want to know, does the libido actually understand father, mother? This is like, again, desire doesn't understand the goals. Desire doesn't have a destination. It doesn't know where it's heading. It's just connecting. It doesn't have totalities or full bodies. It is partial objects and partial objects. It is the impulses of things that are unaware of mother, unaware of family, unaware of what's socially acceptable, unaware of what's socially this or other things. That the whole point for them is that libido does not know father, mother. And as they say, or rather, if it makes the parents function as something different, as agents of production in relation to other agents of social desiring. And they say, from the point of view of libidinal investment, parents not only open to the other, they are themselves countersected and divided by the other, who defamilializes them according to the laws of social and desiring production. The family is not only open, but is actually actively also being countersected and fucked with the other. Parents are not self-contained family units that also relate to society afterwards. This is one of the big problems with psychoanalytic thought, just in general. The setup as they're going is that, hey, we talk and Freud talks about mother and father and their roles and what they do. But that presumes that the family is like in a vacuum. But it's not just that the family isn't in a vacuum, that the family exists and then deals with things socially. It's that the mother herself functions as rich woman or poor, maid or princess, pretty girl, old lady, animal, blessed virgin, and all of these all at once. This is not how we see them. This is not some metaphor. This is how desire operates. When you have a child relating to their mother, they aren't relating to the mother, the symbolic position, the thing that is unique as, oh, it's this, that's the total. No. The child is relating to an extraordinary number of social functions at once. The class position, what work she does, her age, her social status, how she, like everything. All of these are primary libidinal investments, not secondary social overlays on top of familial realities or familial elements that start all of these things. That's not the setup. They're flipping it completely. They're saying, no. All of these things, everything passes into the machine. Everything that causes the properly familial determinations to disintegrate. And then the orphan libido, desire freed from familial determination. That's what orphan libido means to them. It's a long-standing psychoanalytic term, but the orphan libido, freed of familial determination, is a field of social desire, a field of production and anti-production with its breaks and flux, where the parents are apprehended in non-parental functions and roles, confronting other roles and other functions. This orphan libido, the fount of desire, the fount of these forces, it isn't just seeking parents. It's not seeking parents at all. It's actually just investing in social production. The way that you see your dad at work, you're not investing in your dad. You're investing in all of the multitude of things that he's doing in that time. And you're investing in all of these things, and also how they're dealing with other things and how other things are dealing with them. The back and forth, the setup, the multitude, not the singular, the multitude. You're always investing. And so this thing they're doing, and again, just to say, they are not dismissing parental roles or importance. A lot of people do that. They are not as doing that. And they continue through here explaining how that works. Does this amount to saying the parents have no unconscious role as such? Of course they do, but in two ways that deprive them even more of their supposed autonomy. Again, the supposed autonomy, being specific, is the way that psychoanalysis generally treats mom and dad as transcendent positions that a child has to deal with forever, that they always have to deal with, that they're always set up for, that they're always coordinated against. On the one hand, we have, in accordance with the distinction of, God damn it, so much words here. The distinction made by embryologists with regard to the egg between the stimulus and the organizer. Parents are stimuli having an indifferent value that trigger the allocations. It's like, okay, let's pull back slightly. The way they're talking about it is more or less the stimuli of the egg responding. If you don't know epigenetics, or you don't know the way that genetics works, I highly recommend reading Susan Oyama's work. It's a handful of wonderful things. Ontogeny of Information is a masterpiece on this. But it isn't just that there's... the funny thing we've done is we are so Oedipalized that we think that mom's genes and dad's genes are the only things that make us who we are. That the genetics don't get affected by anything else, that we are, as people, as me as an organism, mom and dad are the only two things that made me. That's how deeply we have, and absolutely, by the way, that's fucking insane. It's an absurd idea. The idea that this is in a vacuum is silly from the get. And so they're saying, embryologists with regard to the egg between the stimulus and organizer, they're making a comment on epigenetics here. They're making a comment on how this is not just something that happens, oh, you have these genes, therefore this. But it's like, no, there are triggers for differentiation. Am I claiming this for you, or are you projecting this into others? Secret agent, and you're free to disagree, but I've seen how people talk about these things. So I'm speaking generically, but yeah, people absolutely at large believe that their parents' genes are the genes that made them, and they tend not to consider everything else. They nurture versus nature is the debate we have, not understanding there is no such difference. So that is the same thing. It's because it still presumes the parents. Again, all the debates about all of these things still come back to the parents. We found a way to do it genetically, which is hilarious. But again, no, none of this is the case. None of this is the way this works. Instead, there are triggers for differentiation that happen. And again, for this, they're talking about triggers for social differentiation, not objects of desire in themselves. The mother's class position, though, will trigger zones of intensity around wealth, poverty, power, powerlessness, various attractions or repulsions, things like that. This is the first part that they've got. I heard someone try to speak. Sorry.
Yes, Brooks, thanks. Would it be kosher to apropos to compare, Freud's Oedipal complex to, as a kind of principle, to Kant's, transcendent subject as a kind of, Oedipal, patriarch?
I probably not. But if we're talking about transcendent, I think the transcendent is the way that these function, I think, is the way that would be the word I would use for both. The transcendent mother, the idea that someone is a mother no matter what, or that it's outside of experience, or that someone is that thing based out of other things, that's closer, but it's very different than a transcendent subject. Very different.
Because you can ask, where did Kant get the idea of a priori category, this transcendent subject that it just automatically comes into for him, and that determines how you experience the world.
I think I'd have to have a larger discussion around that, but I'd probably say putting a pin in it for now. Sorry. It's a very, there are better people with Kant than me, and I'm not going to be able to dive super deep into that. I'm just not the guy. If someone else has an answer, definitely feel free to jump in.
Hi.
Hey, Afnan, go for it.
Yeah, so if I understood the question correctly in a different form, and tell me if it's wrong, you think that Kant's hierarchy, that Kant has a hierarchy when he doesn't. That's very not accurate on Kant. I think sometimes Nietzsche, and the way he reads Kant in the critique of in the second critique of practice, this notion of that Kant has this starts to come as if Kant has the Christian God and whatever. But despite that not being accurate, it's definitely not accurate for DNG, because the only way you would start drawing these links is in Foucault's way of genealogy, where he starts linking the family into a higher God, as if they what he calls the network of power that always existed, that always excluded, for example, atheists, gays, whomever, within which is the God father, and then God state or idol or president or whatever, king, and then the father. But that's not DNG's work, because the permanently, I think, or their first idea that we may think or take out of it is that what they're trying to talk about, as I get it, is that despite Freud's which they think is good, decentralized the mental state or pushed forward the idea of the unconscious in some sense, he still managed to form a new form of Oedipian triangle, which is father, mother, and child. And to them, this completely thrown out the positivity, the productivity which he did at the start. So if I can just take the one statement to explain this part especially, is what Levi Strauss called the Freudian myth, and the Freudian myth in the meaning that what Freud has later become or made is a church. It's a power or a church or a structure that completely misunderstood the dynamics of the desire. So in some sense, the schizoanalysis can be considered as if it's psychoanalytic, but without the negativity, without like it will be something Freudian or beyond Freud's family, but Freudian in the same sense. I mean, I don't know if Brooks agrees with that, if I explained it well.
Well, it's I'm talking about maybe that question. If we talk about there is people
Yeah. So someone asked, what is the negativity? I think if you're thinking of detotalization and retotalization, and then you're thinking of it in positivity and negativity, there is negativity. Where what Freud has done is at the start it was positive, it was positivity, it was more of a production, or he produced something that they think appears within the unconscious desire, but he completely re-centralized it and made out of it a triangle of this, which completely took the positive. That's why it's a negativity. It's a lack, and they hate lack. So now, yeah.
So it's become a reactive force, right? It's become it started with an active force in a Nietzschean sense, right? And become a reactive force, right? That doesn't utilize kind of will to power. I guess that's what I am understanding. I don't know.
Yeah. So if you want to take it very clear, I think from Brooks' last video, which I was surprised by, where he used Zizek, which I was expecting a video on Zizek about Deleuze and this. Anyway, regardless, in his last video, he explained something very important, which is the metaphor, and the metaphor can just describe all the problems that DNG have with Freud, because the metaphor is a structure that DNG immediately opposed by the rhizome in some sense. It's something that it cannot be the metaphor in this sense. So the rhizome is this opposite of it. If you start seeing these links, that's why I said schizoanalysis can be understood as a psychoanalysis. They don't have problem with psychoanalysis in the way that usually people think of it. And I think last time with Ben here, we talked about this in his part. We agreed on many things. And what was the most important thing is, it's not the problem of psychoanalysis as like something open. Of course, there are problems, but the main problem is that it became re-centralized, where it completely missed the understanding of the desires where the hierarchy here, has nothing to do with the notion of power or transcendent, as Foucault's, for example, understood it. But the problem to them is different. It's that psychoanalysis, Lacan especially, for example, had a good point, but he completely missed the most important part, which is the rhizomic, the structure. I don't know if that explains it. If not, then I'll have to write it down.
All right, JK, you tell us.
Yeah, so we're talking about, the Oedipal complex as a authoritative, regulative principle, right? And I'm just saying, imagining that could this be also a way to understand Kant's, regulative a priori categories of a transcendent subject that then plays a major role in phenomenal experience.
Yeah, but this is Foucault's way of thinking about it, because DNG, the problem that they have, for example, with the big other is not that the big other is an authority who has power. They question the authority itself. They question whether the big other exists in itself. It's not like, it exists, but it has a power, and this power need to be restructured or resisted or whatever. They question the existence of it in itself. And that's the whole raison thing. So when it comes to Kant, I like the same thing. Like what I think you're putting together over here, and I don't know, you might be accurate in it, but to me, it's not, because it's Foucault's way of looking into their critique on Kant or in Freud or in something. Their critique is different than Foucault's. I mean, you can draw some lines when we're talking, for example, about War Machine, and perhaps this will need Brooks to explain it.
I'm gonna now step in and say we are way off discussion here. I'm trying to keep it as much because and I know it's easy with this text to like really go off. I'm trying to keep it tight to the paragraph, or at least the things in the paragraphs around it. War Machine, wrong book. So for this, I want to focus specifically on, and I think I'd love to hear how you could phrase it, trying to stick to this text, how you'd phrase how they're treating mommy daddy, or how Freud treated mommy daddy, for example. Oh, my camera froze.
Did your camera froze? Yeah.
God damn it. I'm going to fix this while you respond. Did you hear what I said? Did that at least go through?
Yeah. So when we're thinking of the family, in the mommy daddy sense, there is a movie that Deleuze talks about in cinema. I think Rosemary's Baby. If you search for it,
Rosemary's Baby is a lovely film.
Okay, so Rosemary's Baby, as I can see it, explains this different form of the mommy-daddy relationship, where mommy is exactly as you explained it before. It's not mommy is not something fixed, something that someone who gave birth, someone who so okay. Look at it this way: to Lacan, to Freud, when someone is born, they're born into a world that they don't know, that they freak out because it's dark, they don't know it, it's completely new. And then to Freud, that's when the relationship between the mommy and the child begins, where the mommy starts feeding the person and this kid, and then that's where he starts to get because it continues the digestive system that he had before inside her, and then later when he continues to eat in that way, it will form a relation between the mother and father, that the mother and the child, that he knows already. And since he knows it already, he will start looking at her as in a different way, where he trusts her. It's the safe place right now. But to Freud, after 2 years, he gets to meet the father, but he doesn't meet the father directly. He meets the father through the mother, where the mother is the one who symbols the father, shows him the father as God, the person who enters the place, and suddenly everyone needs to be quiet, everyone needs to be respected or whatever. And then that's so this way of understanding, the child forgets after 2 years his relation with his mother. This is the same, by the way, to Lacan in terms of forgetting the relationships, because Lacan's real is only accessible within the first 2 years, and he says it clearly in the seminars. And then when we only develop consciousness in the imaginary, and the real becomes very inaccessible. And although he changes his ideas later in the late seminars and since 23rd seminar, and that's the reason of changing the ideas, is exactly Deleuze and Guattari's. And Ben, I forgot what Ben said last time, but it was a very good point. He was discussing something and a paragraph, and that paragraph is what changed Lacan's ideas on many things, especially on the family. So now that's not to Deleuze and Guattari, not to them. The way mommy is, it's a structure, it's a practice, it's a systematic thing that goes within a whole society. It's not like a mother should always be a female. Like if you think of it, the relations between the child and the child and, for example, as not the child, even growns, but the child and schools, then there's a single mother, or there is mother in total like that. There isn't what they call I don't know if I pronounce it well. They call it the patron. I think there is a guy here who is a French. So.
I am. The camera's broken. The camera's broken. I don't know why. Oh, you cut out for a while, by the way. If you didn't know, Afnan, you cut out for a moment.
Oh, I did? I think you did.
I did.
Holy
I? Shit.
Yeah, I think you did, Brooks, because for me, Afnan's been here the whole time.
Oh, no shit. Wonderful. I'm going to have to get something's going on with my fucking stupid computer again, so I'll have to deal with that. Fun. Keep going. You're good.
Yeah. So Ben, do you remember the paragraph that you read in Cruelty?
I don't remember the exact one, but it was near the end of the chapter on the death drive, right?
Yeah, so the death drive. Yeah. So it was in the death drive.
What was the word you
Sorry?
You try to pronounce, Afnan? The word. Can you write it, please?
I don't know how to write it. Patu, I forgot. It's PS, I think. Is it like this?
Patu.
Yeah, Patu. Okay, Patu. Yeah. So the Patu thing is something that Lacan used later after reading the NG, because that's when the whole, this mother, this family, this triangle, this atomic family. Atomic, I don't know if it's atomic is accurate word even. Does it make sense, atomic, when I say atomic? I'm translating it literally from in my mind. Does atomic or atomic make sense in any way? Anyway, the triangle family is atomic family. It means that this unity, this thing, this system that always exists in many ways.
La famille nucléaire en français, du coup, ça serait atomique. La famille nucléaire in French. Atomique.
Yeah, atomic. Okay, makes sense. Okay. Yeah, so that's the main point over here. Which is back to the main question, that the problem with Freud or with the whole psychoanalytic, although they do speak, especially Deleuze, about Foucault work, and that's why I mentioned the war machine and stuff, but that's a longer story, and I wanted Brooke to explain it, but he's out and he doesn't want to discuss it right now. But anyway, that's a longer story. But although they discuss Foucault's reading and the way he opposes psychoanalysis, it's not the same reason for it. It's not about just the authority or it being so. So, for example, the Freudian, the Foucault's way of critiquing one of it, which is linking the psychoanalytic tradition into psychoanalysis tradition to the Christianity and to the church and whatever. And by the way, that's also Lacan's, but that's a different thing. They don't do that. Deleuze doesn't care about that. The whole problem they have is that this way of understanding misunderstands and starts to act negatively towards the first thing. And here is not even talking about the unconscious, the pre-conscious. Even the unconscious itself, it's misunderstanding it because it makes the unconscious something within, inaccessible, whatever. And you can see it when Brooks said an example, a really good thing, where he says, I remember my mother baking, and then not everyone is that. But you can even take it further, where one of the main things that Guattari's had is that he remembers the red curtain that he had, which didn't completely vanish and didn't become this symbolic thing that he has in his mind, where it became to represent metaphorically blood and sexual relations or whatever. That wasn't to Guattari's at all. It became something that it started linking to his bike, then it became linking to his orange and him eating with his friends, and all of those that weren't in the Freudian or Lacanian way of understanding the unconscious. So the example that Brooke was saying about he remembering his mother baking, even if he didn't remember the mother baking and he remembered the baking itself, it will link to other stuff, not in a Freudian way, not in the way that it will start representing lack, a misrelation. Because to them, by the way, this misrelation itself that Freud, for example, thinks of, or Lacan, is relation in itself. So even if he doesn't remember his mother baking, he would still remember the bakery or the cake or whatever. And then this will link to maybe his friend eating with him. And then this will link to something. It will keep linking up rather than staying in this triangular lacking of God or of some. By the way, this is a problem that Heidegger have as well, but that's a longer discussion since Brooke is back. Welcome, Brooke. Wait, what?
Afnan controls the QC. I've been deposed. So frustrating.
But,
so
I mean,
frustrating.
Did that make sense to you, Brooke?
I wasn't listening.
All right.
So I'm sorry. I took the
Perhaps
headphones off
Ben-
because I had to disconnect and get behind my computer and all that fun, stupid bullshit.
No, I
So-
was tracking the whole time, Afnan. I think that is a solid point. I think you're right on the money.
And I try, and I generally, you are, if anything, I would probably, if I'm just as a guess, maybe slightly too complex, but generally probably right would be the thing I'd say at this point. It's a fair comment, Afnan. I don't know if that's true this time around.
By the way, since you were asking, I'm the one who said.
Well, I know. I saw.
But and then I'm sorry. I think there is lack between sending and I don't know. Like I feel I'm cutting you always, so I don't know how to do it.
That's okay.
How to not cut you? Yeah, because I felt that I bothered you, and then I was like, okay.
It's okay. I've got work to do on my camera to figure out at this point. I've got just a weird nightmare happening here. So it's not you, it's me. I've got a weird color effect happening too, which is just beyond frustrating. What can I say?
Did we go forward? Why your screen is the?
I am adjusting color on my stupid shitty fucking camera input because it's broken. So just deal with it, and we're gonna probably take a break in about 2 seconds here because I'm nearing the end of my ability to mentally deal with this fucking difficulty that I'm now having because this is stupid. This is some dumb shit happening here. Just frustrating. It's not even what the input looks like. Fucking OBS is just fucking everything up today. Just a terrible day. But I want to kind of get back to I want to try to finish this paragraph instead of having like the larger convo, but a larger convo is worthwhile, so it's tough to know. But I mean, I'm sure you went through most of it at this point. Did you finish the paragraph for me, Afnan, Ben? You guys did that, right? Completely? No, a little bit, maybe. Basically, good. I hate to do this. I need to fix this because I'm going to be streaming later tonight, and I want to make sure I get this repaired by then. And I've got another essay to finish. So I'm at this point. I'm going to say we're taking a break. We'll come back to this paragraph. We're going to do the second half of it again next week anyway. But at this point, unless anyone's dying to continue, I think we're not nearing the 2 hour mark anyway. So it's kind of a decent place for us to hold. Everyone good with that? All right. No one seems to be super objecting, so I'm just going to assume that it's awesome.
I mean, it's better to continue, but if you need to do things, then no. Obviously, you need to do it.
Well, trust me, I could go all day. The problem is, like, if at this point, like, I've got some major issues, I've got to actually spend some time diagnosing, and if we end up going for like another hour or two, I'm not going to get it done, and then it's just going to be fucking nightmare. It's just a nightmare.
Yeah.
Stupid fucking thing. Yeah. This stupid fucking
but the
thing.
topic got interesting because, anyway. Because I think the few next paragraphs will be important, so yeah. Anyway.
Well, good. So with that, I'm going to bounce out. I'm going to say, as always, my outro and the way I talk. What the fuck? Why did that happen? Oh, because the camera's gone on that one. Fair enough. See, I've got a lot to fix. Thank all of you for joining. It's always great. Fucking someday. But if you support what I do, patreon.com/DGQC, keep the QC going. Otherwise, just join us live. As you can tell, other people take over all the time and they run this goddamn thing for me. At some point, I won't have to do any work and I'll be a true capitalist, just raking in those big Patreon dollars. Someday. But not yet. So for the time being, join us live, and I'll be streaming a little bit later tonight. We've got a bunch of fun stuff and horrifying things to talk about, as is usually the case. So I know, Gail, I'm apologizing. It'll be fine. It'll be fine next week. But it'll probably be 7 p.m. tonight Pacific, a little bit later, possibly, but probably not. I've got a bunch of dinner stuff to cook for the kids too. So it's a whole thing. But thank all of you for joining.